So to make these pouches, it's best to use wool or cotton yarn. Some places only will accept wool, some will let you use cotton, and some will let you use blends. So you really need to check with where you're donating to see what type of yarn they will let you use. I picked this up from Joann's. It was kind of expensive. It was about 15 bucks for this yarn, but I used a coupon, so it was about $7. But wool is not cheap, so keep that in mind. And then for these micro pouches, they come in different dimensions, so I will list the different dimensions as far as the need, and then you can figure out how many you want to make or how you want to make them. To get started, you're just going to make a slip knot and put your hook in, and then loosely pull it tight. And then you're going to chain just as many chains as you need to, because your weight is going to be totally different depending on your yarn you choose, and your hook is going to be determined by the weight of your yarn. So this yarn calls for 5mm hook, so that's what I'm using. So just go off of what is on your skein, and then you're going to make a chain as long as the pouch you want to make. So I'm going to make a 9.5 inch, which is 24cm mini pouch. So I'm just going to yarn over and pull through until I get to 9.5 inches. And I'm going to check my length. I'm at 9.25 right now, so I'm going to give it 2 more after I get rid of my knot. Maybe 2 more or 3 more. Cotton also shrinks, so if you're going to wash it, you need to take that into account. It actually doesn't shrink when you wash it, but don't dry it and don't use any heat on it. Or I'm sorry, wool will shrink if you use heat on it. So that's about 9.5. Once you've come up with the length of your chain, you're going to want to go back and count each loop, because this is what you're going to be using as your guide for the rest of the project as far as how long you're going to be going. So you'll need to check in every once in a while, make sure you didn't skip a stitch. Otherwise, your work will slowly get smaller. And actually, I have right over here, I was teaching a friend how to make a hat. And she started it, and then she wasn't counting her stitches, and so it slowly got smaller as she was working on it. So unfortunately, it's a ruined hat now, but if you don't keep watching and counting your rows every once in a while of your stitches, then this can very well happen. So that's a very common mistake in beginning learners, so just kind of be aware of that. So I counted my stitches. I have 39, and I'm going to chain 1, because that will be my turning chain. To start on your next row, you're going to put your hook into the first loop from your chain. So you have this area here that's connected to your hook, and you have a little piece of yarn around it, and then you have a loop here. So you're going to put your hook into there, and then you're going to yarn over, pull through that loop, and then yarn over and pull through both loops. And that's called a single crochet. In America, I think the UK may call it a double crochet. Next, you're going to go into the next loop, put your hook in, then you're going to yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. The next loop, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. The next loop, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. And you're going to go all the way down your chain for as many loops as you put in your chain. So I'm going to be doing this 39 times, and I'm going to count them all to make sure I have 39 because I don't want my work to be off. And then I will meet you back at the end of the row. So just as a little reminder, you take your hook, you put it in the next loop, you yarn over and pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. And this is the basic stitch that you're going to be doing this entire project. It'll get really easy for you and familiar, and it's a pretty basic stitch, your most basic stitch in crocheting. So I will meet you back at the end of your row and I'll tell you how to turn. Alright, so I've come to the end of my first row and I'm going to show you how to turn and continue on. So for the remainder of your rows, you're going to do this. You're at your end of your row, you have just a loop on your hook. You're going to yarn over and pull through, which is called a chain 1, and this is called your turning chain. Then you're going to turn your work. You're going to find the V-shaped stitches on the top of your work now, which you'll have from here on out. And you're going to go into that first V shape and put your hook in. Then you're going to yarn over and pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. Go into the next stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. The next V-shaped hook stitch, so there's actually 2 pieces of yarn in your hook. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. And you're going to continue on to the end of your row, making sure you have the correct amount of stitches in your work. So whatever you chained, mine was 39, so I'm going to make sure I have 39 V's when I'm done. And then you're going to chain 1 like I just showed you and turn your work again. So you're just going to continue on this way until your project reaches the length will be double the width that you started at. So I started at 9.5, so this will end up being 19 inches long this way. And then I will stop and I'll show you how to finish off your work, but it's pretty simple that way. I'll finish up this row and show you how to turn one more time to make sure you have it, and then we'll meet back at the end of our project. Alright, so I've got to the end of my next row, and I'm going to show you how to turn one more time so you can continue and finish your project. Again, you're going to just chain 1 for your turning chain, and then turn your work going this direction. Find the first V in your work, making sure that you counted your stitches from the prior row to make sure you haven't skipped one or left one out somewhere. And then yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. So you're just going to continue on. Turn the TV on, start whipping these stitches out, and you will see it grows pretty quickly, and you will stop when your height or your length is double your width. So I will meet you back at the end and I'll show you how to just finish off your last stitch. It's pretty easy, and show you how to sew in these extra little strings and sew up your pouch. So once you are done with your project, you want to remeasure, make sure your dimensions are right. I measure through the middle because your work will tend to kind of stretch and, in different places throughout the time you're working. So I measure through the middle. So I have a 24 centimeter mini that I'm making. And so it's going to be 9.5 inches by 19 inches. So I am on check as far as my measurements. So once you've measured to make sure everything is the right dimensions, you want to finish off your work. So all you do is yarn over and pull through, and cut your yarn and pull that string all the way through. Pull it tight, and then we're actually going to use this to start sewing our little pouch together. So first thing you want to do is line up your corners. And don't worry if your yarn has been stretched a little bit. See how my corners are a little wider than in here, but my stitch count is completely on. It's just the tightness of the weave, and once they get a little animal in here, it's going to get all nice and stretched to them and their shape, and it's no big deal. So first thing you want to do is take a yarn needle and thread it. Once you have your yarn needle threaded, you're going to, you can either use a new piece of yarn or just use the existing end. That's why I cut mine a little long. We can weave this other end in, which maybe I'll show you that first. So you take your hook and you poke through, and then yarn over, or just kind of pull your end through all the way through your work. And there's really no rhyme or reason to it other than you just keep everything really nice and close. And you'll want to do it for a few inches just to ensure that it doesn't come unraveled, and if it does, you have a lot of space there. So you could also thread this onto a yarn needle and just go in and out with your yarn needle. It's all a matter of preference. And then I pull on it, and then I give it just a little tiny pull and then snip. So it's all just kind of worked into the project. Then you want to put your corners together and then start going from stitch to stitch all along the edges to sew up your pouch. So I'm almost done sewing my sides together. I'm almost out of yarn here, and I thought I'd show you how to, if you run out of yarn in the middle of your project or towards the end or whenever you need more yarn, take your yarn and tie it to your existing piece. I do it this way, and then I also do a knot this way, just in case, because I just never know what direction this is going to be pulled. Making sure my knot's right on top. I pull both ends really tight and then cut. And that is a yarn change. Finish up my end of my side here, and I will show you how to finish off your side. Okay, so when you're done, I just go back through it again. I'm actually going to tie off my end by, when you go through it, leave a little loop, and then you can put your needle through it again, and then pull tight. And then, without sewing anything together, just kind of run your needle back and forth to basically tie your end off again. Like that. So I'm going to sew up my other side, and then I will have completed the little pouch. Once you've sewn your sides together, go ahead and turn your project inside out or right side in, whatever you want to call it. Poke your corners out. And then you're going to want to hand wash it and hang it to dry. You do not want to use the dryer, or it's going to shrink things, so don't use any heat on this. And just hand wash it. Make sure that all animal fur, if you have pets, is removed, because customs will deny your work, and it'll deny not just your work, but the whole lot of, you know, who your work was sent with, if you have animal hair on your projects. So be sure there's no animal hair, that they're washed and they're air dried, and then make sure they're thoroughly dried, and then put them in a Ziploc bag and label the bag with what you've done and the size you've done. You can either put the inches or centimeters, but be sure to label whether it's inches or centimeters so that the recipients will know exactly what size they have. But make sure it's dry so that there is no mold or mildew that can grow in the bag in the time that, you know, before it's used, between when you make it and when it's used. And thank you for watching this tutorial, and hopefully we can help a lot of rescue animals and keep them cozy in, you know, their tough times.